Hi, I'm your host Satwan, and welcome to this episode with Warren Brown from Settle. If you'd prefer to listen to this episode on your podcast app, simply visit thepayments.show in your web browser, and you'll get a list of all the episodes and links to Apple and Spotify. If you would like a PDF transcript of this episode, please visit thepaymentsshow.substack.com, where you can download it. Thanks and enjoy the episode. Warren, welcome to the Payment Show.
Thank you so much. Really excited to be here.
Where are you joining from today? Is it in San Fran, where your HQ is?
Not in San Fran, actually, the other coast. So I'm just outside of Boston, on the North Shore of Boston.
I wasn't expecting that. Nice.
There we go. A little surprise for you.
How's the payment scene around there? I don't think I've had anyone from Boston on so far.
There we go. Glad to be the first. You know, it's a sneaky, interesting fintech scene here. You know, certainly on the payment side, a lot of wealth fintechs. But yeah, just it's a great community.
Fantastic. Well, I'll give you an intro so we can get straight into it.
Sure.
So, Warren, you're the head of product at Settle, and from what I gather on your website and various social media, Settle helps e-commerce brands to finance and manage their growth through payments, purchase orders, working capital. So they're the sort of main areas you focus on. And in summary, Settle makes it easier to take control of a company's cash flow, and they can concentrate on growing their brand. Is that an accurate description of what you guys do? I
think you're hired, Satwan. That was fantastic. Yeah, no, I think that's.
Well, give a promotion to your website guy.
There we go. Exactly. No, that's very much what we're all about. Is really fundamentally about helping brand builders who are building e-commerce brands in that $500,000 to $50 million plus range, automate, simplify their operations, and then access the capital that they need to grow.
Sure. So you're quite a small and young company, I gather. Is that right?
I wouldn't call it small anymore, but so we're 70 people strong, founded in 2019 with a great set of venture capital investors. Had a great kind of a record-breaking 2023 in terms of revenue growth and customer growth, and so we're helping 300-400 CPG brands at any given moment in time with their growth. So doing pretty well. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I did look at some stats before for some prep, and I can just throw some out there. So you've processed $2 billion in payments so far. You've got, I think, 80+% of growth year on year for the various brands that you work with. You give loans up to $20 million, so quite a significant set of stats there. Any ones you wanted to concentrate on?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, especially kind of being on the product side, a lot of my focus is on how do we understand our customers' businesses, and how do we understand what do we need to do with software or with capital to unlock growth for them. And so I think that the 385% growth is, I think, to me, is the one that I get most excited about and enjoy the most, because that's a sign of, obviously, the team, the brands themselves are doing a great job, but if we can be giving them more time back in their week to spend more time on marketing or more time on product development and less time on admin and payments and purchase orders, then that helps grow their business. If we can be getting them the capital that they need to make that bigger inventory purchase or to make that bigger media spend, and that then allows them to grow top line, we know we're working in the right space and we're solving the right problems. And so that to me is the exciting part. And I've kind of been relatively new at Settle, but I've been working in this B2B enablement space for a long time. One of my early jobs was microfinance, and so it was lending to micro entrepreneurs in developing countries, and you saw the impact that a little bit of capital at the right time can make in the growth of someone's business. And we're seeing that every day at Settle, which is really, really fun.
Fantastic. When you said micro entrepreneur, I was thinking of a really short entrepreneur just then. clearly not what you mean.
Some of those too, I suppose. But yeah.
Short people are normally billionaires, though, right?
Yeah, there we go. Exactly.
Okay, so I wanted to concentrate on sort of the three key parts of your solution. So you got the working capital. So Settle Now, Pay Later is kind of how you brand it, I think. Secondly, you've got accounts payable automation. And thirdly, around being able to customize and effortlessly create purchase orders. So if you could give us a bit of a whirlwind tour of those three and maybe give us an idea of how big each piece of that pie is, and
Yeah.
add anything else you want.
You bet. No, I mean, I think, especially kind of given the payments focus of these conversations, if you sort of start from the payment and work backward, right? As so these growing brands are paying bills to their manufacturers, to their raw material suppliers, to Meta and others for marketing, etc. And you say, oh well, that's a fairly simple process. I can log into my bank bill pay and move the money. But what you quickly learn is that all of the touch points that need to happen prior to and around and after that payment are what make the difference between the business running efficiently and the business running not efficiently. And that's really what we've tried to solve for with the software. And so it's from the moment that a CPG brand is placing a purchase order with their manufacturer, a lot of folks will start out managing that in a spreadsheet. And then they need to be updating that spreadsheet, and then they need to be updating that spreadsheet with 5 or 10 more pieces of information, and then they hire a few people, and then now everyone is logging into the spreadsheet. And is the information structured? Is it up to date? Do I remember when I need to make that deposit? And it just as the business grows, as the number of SKUs grow, as the number of channels grow, the complexity grows. And what we've tried to do with Settle is build the software that allows folks to keep all the information together in one place, create that PO, issue it to the vendor right on platform, keep track of. There's often a 20 or 30% payment up front due, another payment due when the order ships, another payment due maybe net 30. Keep track of when are those payments due, along with other expenses, and just be able to have visibility into what are the cash outflows that are coming up. And then the easy ability to pay those directly or pay with Settle. And I think one of the really innovative things that Settle does is we're both this kind of workflow automation software platform, but then also a really convenient financing mechanism. And so if you've got a $100,000, $250,000 inventory order, and the cash conversion cycle for that business might be 90 or 120 days. Money goes out the door to the manufacturer, and you're not turning that into cash for can be as much as 3, 4, 5 months. What Settle helps folks with is right in the moment of paying that invoice, they just choose pay with Settle, and that then allows them to select a repayment plan. Very similar to the buy now pay laters that you see on consumer websites, the Affirms and Klarna and that sort of thing. So they can choose to spread it out over 30, 60, 90, 120 days. Do it as a bullet payment, so just pay interest for the period and then repay the full amount at the end, or break it up into equal payments over the time. And what we just find is that's a huge access to that spreading capability makes a huge impact on working capital for growing businesses. But even more importantly is the convenience, right? It's the application is super fast. The decision to use the product is also super fast. And so what we find is that folks are excited about the access to capital, but even more excited that they don't have to spend a lot of time to get access to the capital, if that makes sense.
Yeah, even just some of those scenarios you mentioned earlier would be hell on earth to manage in a spreadsheet when you said,
although I will tell you,
some of it in a certain amount of days and do this then and that then, it would be a nightmare.
I'm always very impressed though at the depth and the degree to which folks push the limits of Excel and Airtable in trying to create an operational system that works for them. But we're always just glad to help folks ditch the spreadsheet and kind of level up.
Well, I did read an interesting article yesterday that the Bank of England, to set interest rate decisions, they were saying that their IT is so outdated and antiquated that just to get the dashboard they need to make an interest rate decision, most of the staff at the Bank of England are just getting the data ready to do the actual analysis. And I think the article was in the paper yesterday because it must have reached a very critical situation.
I mean, sad in that instance, right? But I think really true, and I think it's true across the B2B space, is that these growing brand builders whose most scarce commodity is time, spend way too much of their time just trying to pull, in our case, it's the sales data from their Shopify account. It's the inventory data from a WMS or a 3PL they use for fulfillment, and bank and payment data. Just pulling that all together to get a clear understanding of where do I stand takes too much time, and instead of focusing on the what do I do about it, they're focused on the where am I, right? And and we kind of view our mission from a product standpoint is how do we use software to eliminate and simplify those processes so that the data is all together in one place, and we're surfacing those insights to help folks focus on the more important thing of like making good decisions and running a business.
Yeah. Before I talk about your case studies, you've got some great ones. I wanted to ask if you could maybe explain the origins of the company. You mentioned earlier it was founded in 2015.
2019.
Oh, 2019. Oh, okay. Yeah. Was it, a lot of startups are founded because a couple of folks found some issue and they solved it. Is that kind of what happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually a great story. I think it's a combination of two things. Alec, our founder, worked at a firm for a long time, and so saw the power of kind of the buy now, pay later concept in helping consumers, manage cash flow. Left and had an e-commerce idea. He wanted to build a brand and started to build his own e-commerce company, and was just struck by how hard it was to pull all the data together, manage all of the open POs and the working capital challenge. And he said, wait a second, I've seen this before in a different context, in the consumer context. There has to be a better way. And so company was basically founded on that combination of having seen it done before in a different context, and then feeling the pain directly of in the process of building a brand, and saying we can do better, and we've been on that run, and it's been I think it's been a really powerful kind of growth trajectory. For me, I love getting a chance to work with all of these brand builders. I mean, these are hustling entrepreneurs with passionate about their idea, whether it's the greatest ice cream cookie you ever tasted, or a new or a new shampoo or conditioner product, or a more environmentally friendly cleaning product. It's the passion and the energy is just inspiring. Like, it's really, really fun customer base to work with.
Yeah, it rubs off. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because your company has highlighted that the kind of organizations you folks work best with are startups, scale-ups, and accountants, if I read rightly on your site. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So we kind of view ourselves, for the brands that we work with, we say, if you're in that, if you've gotten up and running, you're in that kind of $500,000 to all the way to 50+ million in annual revenue, you have the pain points that we help with, right? And especially if you've built that spreadsheet and it's served you for the first year or so of your growth, but it's starting to break down because you're hiring a few more people, you've just added your first wholesale account. It's a big deal when a brand gets stocked in Whole Foods or in Target or Walmart, and that often means they have to jump to a level of scale that they haven't managed before. And that window of time is very often when we see people say, "I need help." And I don't want to put my scarce dollars into hiring more admin finance team members. I want to use those dollars for hiring sales and marketing folks. And so they hire Settle, and we help automate the back office. But what we've learned is that the accountants are really key to that process too, because right about that same time, brands are saying, I need help making sure that my books are in great shape, so I can present them to lenders, to equity investors, etc. And so they'll be hiring accountants to help manage the process. And when we talk to those accountants, they say, hey, the existing tools out there not only don't help the brands manage their business, they don't help accountants do their job efficiently. And so we've kind of recognized this and said,
they end up with the spreadsheet from hell, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so our mission is not just to make the brand's life easier, but to say, when you are an accountant to a fast-growing inventory-based business, we understand some of the pain points it takes to calculate the cost of inventory, to manage a big and diverse vendor base, and in the U.S. collect W-9 information and issue 1099 forms. There are a bunch of nuanced little details, but that they're the difference for an accountant between spending, tens of hours on a client every month and spending, only a few hours on a client to have them with clean books. And so we spend a good amount of our product time building great software for brands, and then also building great software for accountants. And they then say, hey, this is the software that I want all of my clients to use, and that helps us grow.
That hits on another point that I learned recently, that they're struggling to recruit accountants here in the UK, and I'd imagine it's similar in the US perhaps, because it's just that boring drudgery of writing out receipts and doing all the stuff you said, rather than actually doing the accounting.
Well, and I think I always separate the bookkeeping from the accounting, right?
Yep.
And the bookkeeping is reconciling every transaction and making sure every transaction is in the accounting system of record. And as you say, it's drudgery. It's necessary. If it doesn't get done, then the information isn't clean. But that's a big part of what we do with software, is how do we automate the bookkeeping side of it. A great example, we just launched in March our three-way match capability. And for folks who aren't in an inventory business, it's not an obvious problem to solve. But when you're ordering a lot of inventory, it turns out that it's pretty common that the number of units that you receive into your warehouse may be different than the number of units that you ordered, may be different than the number of units you're being invoiced for. Pricing on the invoice doesn't always match pricing that should have been. Mistakes get made. There's a lot of moving parts. Generally not an intentional mistake, but if you thought you received 1,000 units and you only received 450, or even 490, and now your systems are out of date, you might get an order for that, for those last 10 units, and try and fulfill it and not have them in stock. And so that process historically is a very, very manual process of a human being taking a PDF of a purchase order, taking a PDF of an invoice, and taking a PDF of a bill of lading, or the goods received notice, and literally going line item by line item manually or in a spreadsheet in order to check quantities and check prices. That's just a lot of human effort. It matters, it's important, but boy, no one wants to do that job, right? And so we basically took that process, automated the collection of those documents, and so we automatically link up the PO with the invoice with the bill of lading, automatically process all the line items, match them, and just surface here's the 2 or 3 where there's an issue, and the human being still needs to get involved to deal with the issue. But we had one accountant talk to us and say, you're literally saving me 3 to 5 hours a week on just this one task with this automation, and that's where we say that's putting valuable time back in people's weeks.
Is that how your organization gets a lot of its sales, through recommendations from accountants, or is it a mixture of inbound and outbound?
Yeah, so definitely a mix. We have a great go-to-market team that is out, on social and bringing in direct business. We get a lot of referrals from brands themselves, and so a brand will be using Settle and love working with Settle and talk to their friend who's building a different brand, and so that's a big source for us. But the accountant channel is very much a big one. We're adding 10, 20 accounting firms a month to the platform, and they then refer clients in. Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk about a couple of case studies that you've got. I'm going to talk about 2 that I particularly liked, and feel free to add any of your own. So I love the story. They're both in food, actually. One was Ladybird Provision, so they sell non-GMO foods. So they said they had 70% revenue growth supported by your solution. And another one I really liked was Truvani, and they make plant protein, and they fueled their retail expansion to 4,000 stores in a year. So there's just a couple that I liked, and perhaps you want to talk a bit more in depth about those, or maybe some newer ones that you've got.
Yeah, no, very, very happy to. And like I said, this is kind of one of the most fun things about the job, is that we're working with these dynamic brands who are hustling and growing, and playing our small part in helping that happen, which is just really, really fun and exciting. But Ladybird's really great. It's Sarah and Nicole, the co-founders down in Austin, Texas. really fun brand builders who are like, they're focused on wellness and nutrition. And so they've created this supplement for your morning coffee. So very environmentally conscious, but they're coffee bombs, dry bombs that deliver healthy fats and proteins as an additive to your morning coffee. Brilliant idea, fun and exciting. And what we saw with them is, in order to make these coffee bombs, they're dealing with tens and then hundreds of different vendors for this piece of packaging, this raw material ingredient. All of that comes together into the finished product. But they were literally making hundreds of payments a month. And when you sort of track the process, each of those payments required 10 plus touches to verify this invoice was accurate with this PO, and so it wasn't just hundreds of payments, it was hundreds of payments times 10 plus touches. Now thousands of monthly activities that need to happen just to run the basic operations of the business. We got them on Settle, and we're able to automate a lot of those touches, automate a lot of those processes, and then also get them access to working capital, because they had a cash conversion cycle. I think it was over 100 days, and so money goes out, and you're waiting for the money to come back in for over 100 days. We were able to use the extended payment plan that we talked about earlier to help them spread that out. And the combination of the time savings from automating a lot of those back office processes and the working capital, gave them a big boost in terms of being able to spend their time on opening new channels and make sure they've got the inventory in stock when folks are ordering. So just a really fun example to see how the combo of the software and the capital can really help drive growth. Yeah, actually, another good one, you didn't mention it, but a brand that we really love, Branch.
Yeah.
For all of us who are working remote now, that they've built this great business with direct to consumer in a lot of cases, and direct to business office furniture, great chairs, desks, etc. So Greg and Verity and Sib, super business, and they were just expanding into a new sales channel. And we see this a lot where brands will start by building their Shopify or direct to consumer presence, and then they'll get a big growth opportunity with a wholesale account. So sell a big amount of volume, via a new channel. And they knew this was a great opportunity to grow the business, and they knew they needed to hire a bunch of new team members to support it, and would be delegating responsibilities that the founders had previously been doing themselves. And that's often when the kind of spreadsheet-based systems really break down. Is how do you have the controls in place to make sure that someone who's new to your company that you're building is doing the right thing without having to do it yourself, And so we put them on the software platform, and it's just like fun combination of savings. Like they were able to expand up to 40 full-time employees who are now processing over, I think it's 150 payments a week, and able to focus much more of those employees on go-to-market sales, versus on ops and finance, and at the same time grow revenue 70x, and so we like those outcomes, and they were one of the folks who are one of our early beta users in the PO and three-way match capability, and the feedback was, again, you're saving me 3 to 5 hours a week that just gives me time to put back into other parts of the business.
Yeah, I saw with Branch they saved 150 hours a year on PO matching alone. That's
right. And again, in our day to day, we don't necessarily think about why would you need to spend that much time. But again, it's if you're not getting the right amount, or if you're being charged the wrong amount, that adds up over time. And so it's an accountability mechanism that needs to get done. And as an accountant, you want your clients doing that work, but it's work that no one really looks forward to sitting down and pulling paper documents together and matching line items. So we say, well, we can write software to solve that problem.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to follow up on a couple of those scenarios where it seems like both, we're approaching the hard limits of Excel. So if somebody's facing that Armageddon situation, how quick is it to get started with your solution and flip over to it? Because I'd imagine if it was a net new installation, it would be super easy. But if you're transitioning in a business that's already running, is it reasonably straightforward still?
Yeah, the good news is we've had a lot of practice at it, because as you say, super easy if you get started right from day one. But most of our brands who are onboarding are, they have something in place, and we're transitioning them on to Settle. It's a combo of tech and white glove, human support. And so, one of the things we see a lot of folks is they'll get started for AP automation using Bill.com. It's kind of the big incumbent in the space. Get frustrated with all manner of things on that platform, and want to transition to Settle for managing AP and AP automation. And we've gotten that process down to it's less than 3 hours. And most of that is effort on Settle's side. We're able to take vendor lists, histories, migrate them over, pick a date, and then as of that date, Settle is the system of record for bills and payments. We're synced up with their QuickBooks or Xero or NetSuite accounting software, and so from an accounting accuracy standpoint, we don't miss a beat, and the switch goes very simply. And then on the working capital side, I think one of the things that we spend a lot of time on and pride ourselves on is we know that brands are busy. Founders they're busy. They've got a lot of things to pay attention to, and getting a clear answer on, can you support me with working capital and for how much, matters. But they don't want to invest weeks or months of back and forth on documents and things like that. That's often the case if you're going to a bank. And so we've gotten our underwriting process where we're usually getting answers back, inside a week to folks, and it's a clear cut. This is what we can do. And then when they want to use the working capital, as I said, in the software, they're looking at the invoice. They just hit the Pay with Settle button, choose the terms from what they've been approved for, and the vendor gets paid, and payment plan gets set up. And so we've really tried to make it to recognize that time is such a precious commodity, and tried to make it really easy for them.
Great. And your customers are all in the States or Canada as well, or other places?
Yeah. So our brands themselves are all US based today. The payments rails that we run on, the banking rails that we run on, work best with US based companies. We certainly help them pay vendors all over the world. So probably 20 to 30% of our payment volume is international, and a decent chunk of that is in local currency. So we have great FX rates and help folks save money on FX rates versus paying a vendor in Italy or a vendor in Peru in local currency. But yeah, today our brand customers are all in the US. We'll see that expand over time, I'm sure. But
just out of interest, that currency under the hood, are you linking to other startups like, well, they're not startups now, companies like Wise and these modern sort of FX providers?
Yeah, that's right. So we've built a partnering with some of the kind of the leaders in the space in terms of payment platforms, both for domestic and then international. We sit on top of those rails, and so we're able to, inside the software, you indicate I need to make an ACH, a fast ACH, a domestic wire, international wire in USD, or international wire in local currency, and simple workflow on the front end. But then we've done the work to feed that through modern treasury on the back end, and our bank partners through that. And it's one of those where it's so much easier now in the fintech world to build banking and payments infrastructure than it was 10 years ago, with so many partners who've built the infrastructure pieces up from to a level of maturity that makes it still work, of course, but a lot easier to do now than it used to be.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. God bless the API.
Indeed. Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay, we could talk about a lot more case studies and your company, but I wanted to finish that part by saying, is there anything you really wanted to get across to people looking at a solution like yours? Maybe I haven't discussed or I've completely missed the mark. You want to mention anything?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great point. I mean, I think the thing I would want to highlight and just call out is we've been talking around it a little bit, but it's just for brand builders out there or friends of brand builders or folks who are in the e-commerce or inventory based business space. If you're feeling that pain of the spreadsheet's not working for me anymore, or boy, I need to hire a new group of folks, and how do I manage delegation of responsibilities and make sure I can get the efficiencies I'm looking for. Those are, you're not alone, right? And you're not alone in that struggle, and that's really, and that's kind of our mission in terms of those are the problems that we really try and solve for folks. And so, yeah, we're really excited about, as I mentioned, the PO and three-way match launch that we've just put out for folks. If you're doing that job of pulling together invoices and POs and bills of lading, manually matching line items or putting them in spreadsheets, boy, let's talk. Because I would love to help take that out of more people's weeks, if that makes sense.
I mean, the biggest opportunity there would be older companies who've been doing that same process probably for decades. I'd imagine that's definitely on your radar, but not a prime focus right now. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, so I think like we definitely focus mostly on the folks in that growth curve. We just find that when you're trying to grow and maybe haven't hired those people yet, or haven't made the big commitment to invest in a massive ERP investment, boy, let's get you in a tailor-made solution before you spend $100,000 configuring a NetSuite implementation.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned, I mean, it's because precisely what you're alluding to there. I mean, the kind of person that's going to be doing that drudgery of three-way matching all day, it's kind of like that Office Space movie where it'll be a big company and they hate their life, but they've got no purchasing authority or any kind of authority really.
So
it's a tough one.
And so it's before you hire that person and create that job in your company, let's help prevent the need for that, right? Yeah, no, and I think that actually is a final point that's worth highlighting is, a lot of brands, as they're 5, maybe 10, and growing into $20 million of annual revenue, start having the conversation of, do we need an ERP, right? And what we've seen in a lot of cases is maybe, sure, but that often what they need is the digitized workflows, especially around inventory, that connect to accounting in order to support the growth of the business. But that ERPs are generally designed for much more massive situations. And so if that's, for folks who are having that conversation, we just find we can often at a much more convenient price point get folks the automation and the digitization of information in their end-to-end procurement process without the massive the massive time and dollar investment to go all the way to an ERP. We can help push that decision out farther down the road.
Yeah, I mean, the best ERP implementation I've ever seen. I used to work, my first ever job was at Intel.
Oh, is that right?
And they ran SAP, and their implementation was amazing. But because that was my first ever job, I just thought that was the norm. I didn't realize till many years later that, it's only because they have billions of dollars they can get it like that.
Yeah, no, that's right. And listen, there's a time and a place for ERPs, don't get me wrong, but we just find that for this segment of the population, especially in that growth curve phase, it's often overkill. But if the choice is spreadsheet or software is the right choice. We just feel like there's especially finding a piece of software that's tailor made for e-commerce and tailor made for CPG is often a better fit.
Great stuff. Well, before we move on to a few lighter things, I wanted to tell people where they can find you guys. So your website is settle.com, and on Twitter you guys are at usesettle, all one word. That's the best way to engage, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if folks are so if you're an accounting firm that deals with a lot of inventory-based businesses and frustrated with the tools available to help manage those businesses, boy, we've got a whole team dedicated to serving our accounting channel. If you're a brand in the space and growing and feeling any of those pain points, reach out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great stuff. So let's talk about the future. What
Yeah.
are the company's sort of biggest goals and aims right now? Any new services coming, and maybe predictions for the rest of this year and maybe 2025 in the payment space?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer, starting from the high level, I'm a big believer in the sort of vertical SaaS operating system model and the embedding of payments inside that. So think like in the US here, Toast for restaurants. What Toast has done for restaurants of starting with building a great POS solution, but then saying, now that we have our restaurant owners inside a piece of software, how do we build the rest of the things that they need to do to run their business together in one place and make that work seamlessly? I having worked with a lot of different business owners in a lot of different industries, I think that's what business owners want. And so for Settle, you'll see us continue to build out the feature functionality of the software so that we can automate and simplify more and more of, for the next year or so, the kind of back-end supply chain processes. So we'll allow folks to move off their spreadsheet of their item master, the product, their product listing and bills of materials and all of that information is another thing that we see that creates complex spreadsheets that are hard to manage over time. And so you'll see us building into that space and really allowing folks to have one place to store and manage the information, and then have it sync across into their direct to consumer channels, sync across into their warehouse management and fulfillment channels, and just create that visibility. Like I said, our mission is, how do we spend less time on pulling the data? How do we help folks spend less time pulling the data together and more time understanding what it means and making better decisions? And then even there, opportunity to say, some of these decisions we can probably help make them for you. Like it's, the choices are relatively straightforward. And so I think there's going to be some fun investments in, leveraging AI to kind of automate some of those vendor interactions, and just, again, take more time off the brand builders plates. But I really think you're going to see a big thing happening just last week here in the U.S. was the MasterCard Visa settlement, and not likely to change interchange rates, but you are going to see merchants starting to be able to either create incentives either with discounts or with surcharges to move consumers off of paying with expensive rewards based cards. And so I think that's gonna hit in our world of like, can we help support that, and can we help our brands get paid in a convenient way and still get access to the cash quickly, but at lower cost. And I think that figuring out how do we help folks minimize the cost of payment processing while still getting all of the convenience of same day or next day settlement. I think there's just big opportunity there. And even the Fed now kind of continuing to roll out. Mm-hmm. Still not being used actively for a lot of these B2B transactions, but I think we'll see more and more of that, and an opportunity to speed up payments. And when you're placing an order for inventory, sometimes the production run doesn't start until the cash is in the bank account, and even saving a couple of days and getting a production run started can matter. And so I'm a big believer that faster and more direct payments with better data attached to it will solve a lot of problems in our space.
Yeah, that's a really good point you raised about the Visa MasterCard thing. I wasn't aware of that.
It'll take some time to play out in the marketplace, but it's a big change. It's a big change, I think.
Yeah, it seems that wherever you look in the world, that somebody's always having a crack at those guys and trying to introduce more competition. But the convenience is so huge, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. And listen, like they have built an incredible set of networks and the convenience is powerful, right? And I think that one of the challenges is attaching data to those transactions and really understanding the data in those transactions can be hard or can take a lot of effort. And I think that's where I come back to the value of the vertical SaaS operating system for a vertical. we know that payment is associated with this PO and is associated with this bill of lading and is associated with this, which tracks back to these line items, which means that we can allocate that into the landed costs, which means that we can save the accountant time in calculating the value of inventory every month. It's the payment itself is a single event, but there's so many other workflows and events that tie to it that historically some human being needs to manually tie them together. And I think what we're seeing is increasingly either the payment rails themselves or the software that sits on top of the payment rails connecting the data with the payment in order to simplify life for the accountant or simplify life for the business.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, I think you're going to see it more and more in consolidation, because it reminds me of what's happening in the aerospace industry. Years ago you choose your Boeing or your Airbus plane, and then you've got three engine providers, right? GE, Rolls-Royce, Pratt and Whitney, and that's it. Yep. But now, because of the systems are so integrated, that now if you choose a certain plane, you only have one engine choice, because everything's so integrated, you can't swap it out.
It's how do you create the benefits of integration while still giving folks the flexibility to have choice, right? Yeah, 100%.
Excellent. So let's finish on a lighter question. So I always like to finish with the same one. What are you reading, watching, or listening to right now that you're enjoying?
Yeah, you bet. Let's see. So
doesn't have to be business related.
Yeah. So on the personal side, the Netflix series, the Three Body Problem. I don't know if you've been watching this at all. But
somebody else mentioned that. I don't know what it's about though.
So it's based on a Chinese novel originally that's been adapted. There's some controversy over the adaptation, political controversy over it, but just a super interesting kind of thought process, version of, alien arrival on Earth, but with a very kind of intellectual and thoughtful, angle on it. So I won't have plenty spoilers, but it's engaging, thought-provoking, and fun to watch. I kind of can't wait for the next season.
Great. Well, I've just started watching Griselda, which you may have seen on Netflix.
Actually, I haven't been watching that. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's really good. I've just watched episode 1. Okay. So if anyone listening doesn't know, it's kind of that Narcos type of show where they focus on a female who was very powerful in the drug cartel world. So yeah, it's like a 4 or 5 part series. It's pretty good. So looking forward to watching more of that.
Got some new stuff to queue up. That's fantastic.
Got to brush up on my drug smuggling skills, after watching Narcos and the other one.
Careful how you process the payments for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Well, thanks so much, Warren. Really appreciate it. And wish you all the best in your future growth plans, and maybe see you soon one day.
That'd be fantastic. Great to connect. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Cheers.